All right, today's the day. We are headed to Europe. After months of planning and preparing, it was finally time to head out for our trip. And as you can tell, Haley was pretty excited when we picked her up from school that day.
I'm so excited! Let's go to Paris!
Woo!
Yay!
Once we were all loaded up, we hit the road to drive from Richmond to Dulles for our flight. We had had some slight hiccups in the days leading up to our trip when we found out that Delaney was booked as a lap infant instead of having her own seat like we had planned. Haley also got hit with nerves as we arrived at the airport and had to drop off our checked bags, but she channeled her love of Cocomelon to sing a song about being brave, and I'm so proud of how she picked herself up and turned everything around. Obviously, dinner at a restaurant and playground in the airport were a big help too. This is also a huge shout out to all the airports that have playgrounds because this was a big hit with the girls and a great way to kill time until we needed to check in for our flight. Now, the problem with Delaney's seat couldn't be solved until we arrived at our gate, and we got so lucky to have a pretty empty plane where there were plenty of seats for her to have her own. Getting this issue resolved was a huge relief and was also the first time I would cry happy tears over the next 24 hours. So with that issue resolved, it was finally time to board the plane. Unfortunately, they booked us in the bassinet row, which probably would have been great if Delaney was under 5 or 6 months, but she was far too mobile for the bassinet and thought it was a very funny game. Once we took off and we were all settled, we worked on trying to get the girls to sleep. Since we'd been able to spread out, Haley was able to lay down and sleep for 4 to 5 hours, and I even was able to close my eyes and sleep as well. Delaney, on the other hand, was in and out of sleep all night, and Andrew didn't sleep much, if any at all. But we safely landed in Dublin, and we were ready to relax during our 4-hour layover.
We survived our first plane ride with the crew. It was Delaney's first plane ride ever, and it was overnight. Now we're hanging out in the lounge in Dublin, enjoying some snacks and coffee, and hoping we can power through this day. On to the next leg.
I'll cover this in a future video, but thanks to our credit card, we have access to many lounges at airports all over the world with Priority Pass. We were so thankful to have this quiet space since we had such a long layover, and it was so nice to have access to all the snacks and drinks we could want, including a Guinness at 10 o'clock in the morning, because when in Dublin. After enjoying our snacks, some tablet time, and a quick nap for Delaney, it was finally time to board our flight. Thankfully, this was a much shorter flight, and I can't even begin to express the feeling of relief I had when we finally landed in Paris. We'd been talking about this trip for so long, and to know that we had finally made it was such a relief. I may have also teared up when we saw that our bags had safely arrived in baggage claim, and also when our driver was waiting for us with my name on a tablet, and I knew we actually had a safe way to get to our Airbnb. Between all the stress of travel and the lack of sleep, it was quite an emotional roller coaster of a day. After lots of research, we had decided to book a car service to pick us up from the airport and take us out to our Airbnb. Their prices were fairly comparable to the taxi services, plus they were able to supply a booster seat for Haley so we didn't have to bring one for her. We drove through the city and got our first glimpse of the Eiffel Tower at night, and it was a stunning sight to see it all lit up. Unfortunately, Haley had fallen asleep just before it came into sight, and there was nothing we could do to wake her up in time to see it. Once we arrived at our Airbnb, we dropped off all our stuff and made a quick run to the grocery store down the street to grab a quick dinner.
All right, we have made it to our apartment in Paris. We're in Paris right now.
Does it feel real? Or does it feel like a dream?
It feels like a dream, but it's really fun.
So our only adventure we've had so far is going to the grocery store, which was definitely an adventure. We were probably a little too tired to handle it at dinner time for the first time, but we did. We're having a little picnic. We got a baguette, une baguette, un fromage, or some cheese, and charcuterie. That's gotta be French, right? That sounds pretty French. So we just got basically a picnic dinner because we're all exhausted. I think everybody's ready for bed, so we're just gonna eat a little bit, get the girlies in bed, and
that's where we all are going to sleep.
And as Haley says, right through here is our group bedroom, so we will all be sleeping in there. So we will get ourselves set up and get everybody in bed. And are you ready for a day of adventures tomorrow? What do you want to do tomorrow?
Have a little picnic tomorrow.
Where should we have a picnic?
By the Eiffel Tower.
That's a great idea.
A great idea. So we'll check in tomorrow, hopefully for a picnic.
After such a long day of travel, we were so relieved to be all settled into our Airbnb. We tucked the girls in, and all we had energy for was a quick glass of wine before heading to bed ourselves to prepare for our first full day of Parisian adventures in the morning.